welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah, and this list of books is going to be the series I am currently in the middle of. Please hit that like and subscribe button down below and let's get into it. Okay, so this list is pretty long because I have this issue where I never finish a damn series, ever. I never finish it. Okay, I do, but I have, I guess, this issue where I start 6 series and then like finish one and then start 6 more. It's a problem. I'm working on it. The books or series that are not going to be included in this video are books or series where I'm still waiting for the next one, meaning it hasn't been published yet, or series that I've started and plan on restarting before I go on with the rest of the series. That'll be a whole different video. Books that will include is going to be like Wicked Saints. I'm going to reread that before I go on. Crown of Feathers, the 3rd book, isn't published yet, so on and so forth. Those are some examples, but the series and books in this list are going to be books where I have the next book in the series that I could read. They've been published, I own them or could rent them, and am ready to read it. Most of these series I have started since 2021 started. So in 3 months, I've started like, I don't know, 10 series. It's fine. But let's get into the books. My hair's doing weird things today. Okay. The first one is, okay, I am 28 years old and I just started The Hunger Games. And yes, so I listened to The Hunger Games on audiobook and I plan to read the rest of the series on audiobook as well. Though I do want to collect the rest of this series in this edition, though it looks like the only way I'm going to be able to get the rest of these books in this specific edition is if I buy the like box set of this exact edition. But I really enjoyed this audiobook. I'm going to be talking about my thoughts of my first read through of The Hunger Games at the ripe age of 28. And yeah, I'm not super into dystopian anymore. I feel like dystopian is a lot of people just walking around. Like there isn't a lot of action unless there's like some action scenes, you know, where individuals are, you know, running from anyone that would kill or like capture them. But The Hunger Games is a little bit different. There is more action because it is, you know, The Hunger Games. I'm not going to say too much about it because it is very well known. So I am going to be going on with this trilogy via audiobook, and I did get the prequel. What is it called? The Ballad of Songs. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I think it's called, and that is actually what's prompted me to actually read this trilogy to begin with. The next series I am also listening to on audiobook, but that is Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, and I recently just finished listening to the audiobook for The Magician's Nephew, which, again, I'm 28 and I've never read or watched the Chronicles of Narnia. I know what it's about like kids going into a wardrobe and popping out on the other side in this strange magical world, but that's pretty much all I know about it. But I did recently listen to the audiobook of The Magician's Nephew while I was working on my puzzle. It was a really short audiobook, and oh, the physical copy has like illustrations and such. I didn't know that. It was relatively short. It didn't actually take me that long. I think I listened to it all of maybe 2 days, which if I read this, I could have easily read it in one day if I really put my mind to it. But yeah, I actually liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to. It dealt with a lot more like hard-hitting topics for like a children middle grade, but I enjoyed it, and I'm going to listen to the rest of the series via audiobook as well. But I do own books 1 and 2 via physical copy. Completely different from the Chronicles of Narnia, not a middle grade but an adult series, is Rapsodic by Laura Thalassa, and I read Rapsodic late last year and absolutely loved it. There are trigger warnings up to wazoo. Who am I? My age is showing. There are so many trigger warnings for this book, including death, murder, sexual assault of a minor, so on and so forth, blood, gore, yeah, so here we are. But it is an adult high fantasy, and it follows the bargainer and a young woman. So the young woman made a deal with this high fae guy, and when she was younger, and then collecting beads where each bead represented a deal she made with the bargainer, and he's never tried to cash in these favors, and so so she just has this whole armful of beads. And yes, I really enjoyed this book. Like I said, very dark, but very good. So if you know the trigger warnings going in, I would definitely look that up on like Goodreads and stuff, but highly recommend. Very good adult high fantasy novel. And I am actually not sure if I want to reread Rapsodic before I go on with the series. I do own books 2 and 3. Part of me is thinking I want to, but I wanted to include this in here because it's not one of those series where I think it might be necessary to reread the first book. Though I am a huge rereader. I love rereading. It's one of my favorite things. Sometimes I enjoy rereading a book or series more than I like starting a new one, but yes, another problem I have. The next one is An Ember in the Ashes by Sarah-ndipity, and this is another series that I talk about quite often on my channel, but it follows Laya, who is poor and has had a lot of tragedy in her life, and her brother gets kidnapped by this like empire, and she infiltrates a rebellion who then they help her infiltrate the empire. She meets Elias, who is kind of like a soldier for said empire. They obviously have conflicting agendas, but I really like how the story has converged so far. I've read books 1 and 2. I'm waiting for Noria from Noria Reads to read book 2 so we can both go on with books 3 and 4, because this is a series that I'm buddy reading with her. Another series that I'm buddy reading with Noria is going to be The Beautiful. This is book 2, The Damned. Obviously, we haven't read The Damned because neither of us were a huge fan of The Beautiful, but like I gave it like a good 3.5, maybe 4 star. It wasn't a new fave, so like I'm not like, it wasn't bad. I just had higher expectations for it, and she kind of felt the same, and so we have kind of been putting off The Damned, but whenever she's ready to pick it up, I am ready to pick it up. Also, I probably won't reread The Beautiful, but here we are. This is a duology that follows a girl who murdered a man who attempted to rape her, and then she was then shipped off or moved to New Orleans, coming from, I think, Paris. And she runs across this deep, dark underworld of people that aren't human, and it's kind of mysterious, but the book and series so far has been really atmospheric, which I've really enjoyed, and there has been enough drama and intrigue to keep me interested. But again, it just fell a little bit short for me, but I am expecting the duology to be, I don't know, I've heard really mixed reviews on The Damned, so I'm not sure how I'll feel, and I'm not usually that picky about my reads, so I'm expecting The Damned to also be pretty middle ground for me, but we'll, like I said, just have to see. The next is also a duology, and I was supposed to buddy read this. Okay, Dory and I say we're gonna buddy read every single book ever published together, and this was one of them where I was like, oh crap, we did say we were gonna buddy read that, but it was another audiobook that I listened to, and it is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to, and I really enjoyed this, and I am not putting off Muse of Nightmares until Noria is ready to read Muse of Nightmares, but I do own that book as well. But this follows Laszlo, who is a librarian and an orphan, and he is kind of recruited to this secret city, basically, that everyone ever has forgotten, including its name. And this is where he meets Sarai in his dreams, and she is kind of a different kind of being. She is blue, she is beautiful. There is very magical things that have happened for this city to be forgotten by everyone. He is recruited by someone from this forgotten city to go there and work on a problem that they are having with basically this giant fortress that's kind of looming over their city, and he takes up that opportunity without a second thought. And this story is just so beautiful and atmospheric and lyrical that I really just recommend going in not knowing too much about it, just to experience the book itself in all of its glory. The next book is Snow Like Ashes by Sarah Rosh, and this book follows different kingdoms, and each one is named after a different season, and it follows the Winterians from the Kingdom of Winter and how their kingdom has pretty much been wiped out. There's only a handful of them left, and they are trying to collect different mystical objects. I think it's in the form of a locket, because they are trying to get the power that they once harnessed back, because they are trying to build their kingdom back up, because otherwise they're going to be completely wiped out. And there was a lot of intrigue in this story. I really enjoyed it, more than I thought I was going to. I didn't have super high expectations going into this book, but I am pretty much sold on it now and hoping that I like the rest of the series. And I do have book 2, and it is the next book that I have to read, and I am ready to pick it up, but I've heard mixed reviews on book 2, and I'm not a big book 2 of trilogies kind of person. Usually book 2 is where I start to lose my interest, because just the middle book slump usually in YA and YA fantasies is just really intense, and I heard that it is no different in this series, so we'll just have to see how it goes, but I am ready to go on with it. The next series is the Cursebreaker series, A Curse is So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. I do have a book 2. I really enjoyed this book. Like, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. And basically it follows a young woman who has cerebral palsy, and she is kind of taken into this other world where she is then tasked with trying to break a curse on the prince. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so the prince is obviously the beast. He transforms, and she kind of has to figure out how to break this curse and hopefully go back home. So I really enjoyed book 2. I'm hoping it's going to be on my April TBR, so stay tuned for that if my cards for my Naruto TBR kind of pan out, but we'll just have to see. But here we are, super excited to get to it. Yes, I'm ready to go on with this series. The second to last series that I will be talking about today is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I loved Red Queen. It was one of my favorite books so far of this year, but Glass Sword, which is book 2, which is right there, was one of the most disappointing reads of my year. So I'm feeling some whiplash. I'm feeling like, I don't know. I read book 2 and I'm like, this is one of the most disappointing reads ever, which was weird because Red Queen, like I was saying, was wow. It blew me away. And so yeah, what a disappointment. But Red Queen follows Mare, whose best friend is about to be conscripted into the military, and pretty much that's a death sentence. So she goes to the palace to try to make it so he's not conscripted. Some things happen where she is then thrown into an arena. Some things are then noticed and realized about her, and it kind of goes from there. There's a lot of political intrigue in Red Queen that I absolutely adored. I love my YA fantasies to have really amazing political intrigue, which it was definitely there in Red Queen and Glass Sword. It's one of the redeeming qualities of Glass Sword, so here we are. Yes. Also, the cliffhanger at the end of Red Queen was absolutely phenomenal, and I'm just, every time I think of Glass Sword, I get a little angry. You can check out my Goodreads review of it, or it is in my recent wrap-up video that I posted last week, so you can check that out as well. Oh my gosh, I just lied. 2 books left. Okay, the first one is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I have read Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight in the past, and then I started book 3, which is Heir of Fire, and that is when the series takes a drastic turn, and I was like 30 pages in, and I was like, what is this? I wasn't prepared for the turn the series was about to take. My fault. I couldn't wrap my mind around it, so I had full intentions of putting down Heir of Fire and then picking it back up, but never did. But I am now buddy reading this series with Noria from Noria Reads, and yes, we are currently in the middle of The Assassin's Blade, which is the prequel bind-up novellas right before book 1, which is Throne of Glass. And yes, it's a ride. Now that I'm mentally prepared for the turn it's going to take, and now that I've read other Sarah J. Maas books, I think I will be fine and will absolutely love it. Throne of Glass follows a young woman who is an assassin, and we don't find out how she is basically caught by the Empire and shipped off to the salt mines to basically die as she works, but the Empire goes and retrieves her from the salt mines and pretty much puts her into an arena to fight to her death. Things obviously don't go as they are because the series is like 8 books long or something like that, but I am really enjoying The Assassin's Blade because you're getting a lot of background which explains Throne of Glass and the rest of the series so damn well that I really regret not reading The Assassin's Blade first before going into Throne of Glass the first time. So we will make it through this series. Noria will bully me into finishing the series, but I have a feeling I'm gonna want to anyways, so it's fine. And the last book is Wake by Lisa McMahon, and this was a reread for me, and I plan on rereading the rest of the series and really just enjoying it. This was one of my favorite series in early high school, I think. It is very old, and it follows a high school girl who, when she is in the same room as other people who are sleeping, she is sucked into their dreams. She doesn't have any say in the matter, which pretty much means that if she's in the library and someone falls asleep, she'll be sucked into their dreams. If she's on a bus full of people and someone falls asleep, she is sucked into their dreams. And it is something that she has no control over. She doesn't know anyone else that can do it, and it is pretty much a curse. But I forgot how many hard-hitting topics this book dealt with. So there are a lot of trigger warnings, though it doesn't go too much into it, but the major one I can think of is alcoholism and and neglect, drug abuse, so on and so forth. It's also really like the margins and words are very large, so it didn't take me very long to get through it, but I forgot how fast-paced this book was and how interested it made me in the long run. I really like fast-paced books, where in this case it is on the verge of hurting it because it's so fast-paced, but it's just so interesting that I just can't help but love it. I did rate it, I think, a 3.5 star as I reread it, because there are problems with it, but it's also just a really good fast-paced YA old fantasy book series. And yeah, so here we are. It's a reread. I've been meaning to reread it for years now. Finally got around to it, so I will be rereading Fade and Gone, which is books 2 and 3. And so I am pretty sure I missed at least a couple of books or series. These are it that I could look off on the top of my head. I'm thinking about doing a separate video for the manga series I'm currently in the middle of, so if you want to see that, let me know. I would be happy to make it, because there is a handful of those. Not quite as many as my novels, but there is a handful of manga series that I'm in the middle of as well. So here we are. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe down below if you haven't already. I'll see you guys all next time. All love. Bye.